Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing you to the news Untouched Stories. I am Oyin Opala. Let's begin. Residents across the southern Cameroons are raising growing concerns over public safety following a series of deadly incidents linked to a dangerous road, uncovered drainage systems, and poorly managed construction works in path of southern Cameroons. Communities in Bamenda and surrounding areas say worsening infrastructure and insecurity are putting civilians' lives at risk. In Batibo, a serious head-on collision along the Bamenda Mamfe Ekona highway left one passenger critically injured after he became trapped beneath an overturned vehicle at Detained village. Witnesses said the victim attempted to escape moments before the crash by jumping through a window, but the vehicle flipped and landed on him. Bystanders later rescued him from the wreckage and rushed him to the hospital in critical condition. Meanwhile, residents of Tuchel Nkwem in Bamenda are demanding urgent intervention over uncovered gutters and poorly marked construction zones they say have become reoccurring death traps for motorists and pedestrians. Public anger intensified after the death of a local teacher allegedly linked to the hazardous pit along the Sunak Street, while several other incidents involving open trenches and unfinished roadworks have also been reported in recent months. Residents also expressed concern over security risks after an explosive device was reportedly discovered earlier this year inside an uncovered drainage gutter in Nkwem. Locals now are calling on authorities and construction companies to install protective barriers, warning signs, and temporary safety measures, warning that continued negligence could lead to further tragedy across the southern Cameroons. All these and more we will dwell on tonight's Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we take a look at the Bambili exodus as students flee ahead of May 20 lockdown as transport fares double and extortion mounts. Also tonight, residents raise alarm over deadly open gutters on safe roadworks in Bamenda. Tonight, one critically injured in head-on collision along Bamenda Mamfe highway, while the Bees operation shut down Ekona market, hundreds detained in sweep. On the African scene, Ebola outbreak reaches Goma as WHO declares global health emergency, while Equatorial Guinea, Russia deepen defense ties during Moscow talks. That is on the global scene. Now let's get the news in full briefings. Students at the University of Bamenda are rushing to leave Bambili after Ambazonian authorities announced a 3-day lockdown ahead of the French Cameroon's National Day celebrations on May 20th. The mass departure is driven by fear of insecurity, with many residents describing the period around the May 20th celebrations as unpredictable. The Ambazonian war has made national holidays flashpoints for what has been described as clashes between French Cameroon government forces and the Ambazonian State Army, prompting families to flee to what they consider safer areas. The sudden exodus has triggered a spike in transport costs. A trip from Bambeli to Mau to Nkwem, which normally costs under 500 CFA, is now selling for 1,000 CFA. Fares to Commercial Avenue in Bamenda have climbed to between 1,000 CFA to 2,000 CFA. Students accuse some taxi and bike riders of exploiting the situation. According to one, he says it's not just demand. Drivers are naming their price and refusing to move unless you pay it. If you argue, they tell you to work, said a third-year student waiting at the Bambali Park. With cars scarce, many students have been forced back to their hostels in frustration. Those with enough cash are paying inflicted fares to get out, while others are hiring commercial motorbikes for long, risky journeys to escape the town. Travel agencies in Bamenda report being overwhelmed as families book seats out of their area. The rush mirrors a pattern seen since the Amazonian War of Independence began, where residents have ahead of national holidays to avoid potential violence. Not everyone can leave. Students without money to pay the hike fares say they have no choice but to stay behind the lock themselves in hostels for the duration of the lockdown. According to a student, they said they will stay indoors and wait it out, but the atmosphere here is panic. While Sudan leaders and residents are calling on the colonial authorities to regulate the transport fares during the period and to increase security to prevent intimidation and price gouging. For now, Bambili remains tense with packed roads heading out and empty hostels left behind as students grapple between the cost of living and the risk of staying. Well, that's our first report for tonight. And we have our in-house analyst, Barrister Mbeseha, who is here to analyze what this could mean. Barrister, good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Barrister. Now, the lockdown that has been declared by the Amazonian government is just saying stay indoors, right? Do not observe these holidays, do not observe any of these, just stay indoors. But as we can see from reports that are making headlines across socials and in the dailies, it just makes it look like they're saying run away. And that is attracting a whole lot of pressure from residents of Bambali, as we have seen from the reports. But it's just something like stay indoors and do not step out. That's what you're required to do. But then you can throw more light on this as an Amazonian who understands what this means in its critical agenda.
Well, I think it's something very deep and historical. You know, lockdown, run away, pay heavy transport fares are just a symptom of the disease. What are they running down? What are they running away from? Why are they paying high transport fares to escape to? Why? Why must you ask? The bottom line is they are running away from May 20th celebration. The lockdown is called because of May 20th celebration. The fares have gone up because people are fleeing from a national celebration. And can this truly be a national unity day that is being celebrated or captioned in here one day? How do you put escape from a national unity day? You see, what's happening in Bambili is just the tip of the iceberg. It is across Amazonia. The central question one must ask is, those Amazonians, British Southern Cameroonians, who are sitting on the high tables in Yaoundé, even in Bamenda town, in Buya, and drinking whiskey and champagne in the name of celebration, do they really believe in this celebration? That's a larger question. Somebody, a representative of Bambi or Mezam, that's part of Mezam, which is in Yaoundé and is rejoicing and dancing because of National Day. Does he really believe that there's a National Day in his backyard, where his mother and father, his parents live, where his children go to school? Certainly not. And so it's a farce for people to pretend that there's a National Day when there is no celebration everywhere. A National Day which is largely rejected by a big segment of the population. So it's good to go back and count, start all over and ask yourself. Again, this is happening in Bambili, you say. This is Meza. This is where the Pope was a few days ago. This is where after, in fact, during the visit, the Pope said, peace now. And then Archbishop Andrew said, we'll go out to enforce it. This is still Bamenda. We're not here in Kambe. Can they truly say there's peace? Can they truly say there's no more war? If there's no peace, what are the causes of the war? Have they addressed these causes? Have they found adequate solutions? That's the bottom line. The guy running away, the fare hiking is normal. Where there's scarcity, the prices go up. If there are only 2 vehicles or 2 bikes that run on that road and carry 50 people in the day, if there are 200 people, well, they have to increase, they have to hike. And so that is normal. But again, the bottom line is, why are people running away from a national day? The real answer is, because it's not a national day. It is not a day of unity. A day of unity should be bringing people together to dance and rejoice, not sending away people fleeing in buses, fleeing in motorbikes, going on foot to where they can find shelter. And that's the bottom line. Can we again say that there's a national day, a day of celebration? We have addressed it before. May 20 is supposed to be a day of mourning. If in Ambazino had to go out, you had to go out wearing black cloth. You had to wear sackcloth. To mourn what? To mourn the death of their own institution. To mourn the death of themselves, called West Cameroon, called British Southern Cameroon. Where are they? Where is that place they call British Southern Cameroon, who was celebrating unity? Unity in 1972 was not Unity Day celebrated because Bafusam was joining with Douala. Douala was joining with Yaoundé. Garawa was joining with Marwa. No, nothing changed on May 20th as far as these places are concerned. The only thing that changed was that they buried Southern Cameroon, dismembered it, named parts of it the way they wished. What did they do? They broke down West Cameroon into 2. That's the only change that happened in the country. Naming part of it Northwest, and second part of it Southwest, and naming their president, a representative from Yaoundé, to sit there and represent them in the name of so-called governor. And so nothing happened to East Cameroon. Everything happened to West Cameroon. And so, again, what are they celebrating? What are they celebrating? Celebrating United Republic of Cameroon that was born illegally out of the May 20th referendum of 1972. Where does it exist? It's no longer even there. Where is that celebration they are celebrating? It's not there. Are they celebrating the Cameroon of 1984 that was reborn from Cameroon of 1960? Nobody knows. And so what is all this stupidity of trying to blind people who are not blind? At least between 1961 and today, Ambazonians are so well educated. In Yaoundé and even in the streets in Bamenda, you have PhD holders. In Buya, you have doctorate degree holders in political science and so on and so forth. In history to us is no longer what we told, what we can read. And as I've said before, every single aspect of Ambazonian history, the history of British Southern Cameroon, is documented somewhere. In right that we read written today, or written years back, decades back, we're reading it today. It's going to be centuries down the road. We cannot have history, and we cannot kill history by falsehood. Over to you.
Okay, Barrister, like we try to change the narrative, because the narrative that is being painted across the socials is that all people have to scamp for safety. People would need to leave their comfort zone to where they will eventually have safety or security and all of that. I want you to highly emphasize on how important this celebration is for Ambazonians not to celebrate it.
I've said it many times before. I say for mourning. Mourning takes different forms. Again, if you want me to emphasize why they should not celebrate, nobody should go celebrate the death of his own mother or father. When somebody dies, it's a cause for weeping. You might, if your mother died, for example, and you're in London or you're in the United States or somewhere else, you might be in your own day while your mother is dead in the village. If you cannot afford to go to the funeral burial, to the burial of your mother or your father, what will you do? You will sit in your house and lock your door and pray, and you're supported by people who come to sympathize with you. You don't need to go right there. And so, having used May 20th to destroy the entity called Southern Cameroon, the entity called the State of West Cameroon, plus its own institutions, every ambassador should be mourning. But then come back to the lockdown. Where are people running away from? The lockdown per se is not dangerous. The lockdown per se does not threaten anybody. It's you to sit down in your house, wherever you find your room, in your bed, and stay indoor. If you cannot pray, do something else for yourself. And so a lockdown is not a call to rebellion. It's not a call to action with arms. It's simple, it's civil disobedience. Civil disobedience. Simply staying away or keeping quiet. Let me give you a good example of civil disobedience. So well recognized. It's not nobody, but it's very. We have something they call hunger strike. You are taking study for no fault of it. You are being kept there for months and for years without any reason. But they know that you cannot survive until they give you food. And so during those years that you are being kept there for months or weeks, they continue to come and give you food, so you may not die. But you continue to suffer the torture of the detention. What do? In most people, in civilized places around the world, you go on hunger strike. I'm no longer eating that food until you tell me why I'm here. That's meant to call attention to the world that somebody is dying in detention for no fault of his. You have done nothing. You have not hurt your abductor. The man who has adopted you and keeping you there. You have not harmed him. You have not quarreled with him. You have not even insulted him. You simply say, I'm not eating the food anymore. How does that hurt him? Why must they open your mouth by force and put food into your mouth? And so for Ambazonians, just simply put, this is a day of mourning. Mourning what? Mourning the death, the killing, the murder of our Southern Cameroon, the murder of our institutions. The story is long. If you go to explain what we lost through that killing, you will hear the story when we come to the story of the streets in Bamenda, digging roads and people falling in trenches. You will come to hear about it when you see secondary schools in Akwaya with tashes on top of it. You will come to hear more about it when you find people die in the streets without hospitals, without dispensaries. This is the global context of what it is all about. That institutions are meant to serve human beings. They are meant to serve your needs. Once they cure you to talk, you have ceased to be a human being. You have ceased to be a state. And so we must mourn for it. But again, lockdowns that they are fleeing from, lockdowns per se are not dangerous. They become dangerous or when you put yourself at risk. To do what? To dare it as many times before. They say, and so what would you do to me if I disobey it? There might be a consequence. The consequence, I don't know. It might be a stray bullet will take your eye. Maybe you fall into a trench in Bamenda Street trying to escape. Those are all consequences of disobeying the ghost, the lockdown, which are civil disobedience, which are not supposed to hurt anybody. They're supposed to simply be a sign of defiance. Say, I'm not going out to celebrate this thing because you me to mourn my own death, asking me to bury my own corpse. I hope that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. I would borrow your words there. You said it is a global context to explain it. So I agree with you. Thank you for that global context explanation. So this would definitely go ahead to, change the narrative. This would definitely go ahead to correct the ills that are being said about this day. Moving on, barrister, residents of Unquim, Total Unquim in Bamenda are calling on local authorities to urgently address what they describe as growing safety risks posed by uncovered gutters and poorly marked construction zones along major roads in the area. The renewed concerns follows the death of a local teacher identified as Mr. Ng, linked to a hazardous pit along Sunak Street, an incident that has intensified public frustration over deteriorating road safety conditions in parts of the city. According to residents, one of the most dangerous spots is a large uncovered gutter situated in front of the Total petrol station at the entrance to Cow Street in Ukraine. Locals say the drainage trench has become a reoccurring hazard for both motorists and pedestrians, with accidents reported frequently. Residents said the latest incident occurred on Sunday when a cargo truck reportedly slipped into the gutter and remained trapped for several hours, causing traffic disruption and drawing fresh attention to the risks posed by the exposed drainage system. Community members also recall that approximately 2 months ago, security forces discovered an explosive device hidden inside the same gutter, raising additional security concern in a nation already affected by instability and insecurity. I beg your pardon. Residents argue that properly covering the drainage system could help reduce both accident risks and potential security threats. The situation has reportedly been compounded by ongoing road works being carried out by Bond's construction company. Residents accuse the company of failing to adequately mark dangerous construction areas, particularly open trenches and unfinished bridges located directly along active roadways. Several people are said to have fallen into construction trenches and partially completed bridge section in recent months due to the absence of warning signs, barriers, or temporary protective measures. While authorities have reportedly earmarked the road for future construction and rehabilitation works, residents insist immediate temporary safety interventions are urgently needed to protect road users and prevent further accidents. Local residents are now urging municipal officials and contractors to install warning signs, barriers, and protective coverings around exposed gutters and construction sites as concerns continues to mount over public safety in the area. Barrister Mbeseha wrote, "A regular cry on Undaunted. I doubt if we've had any bulletin without major road challenges. While they are being promised in the future that the road would be, done, corrected, gutters, potholes, and all of that will be filled, lives will be at risk. People will keep dying until whenever they decide is the future for these ills to be corrected." Let's get your thoughts on this particular one.
These things get us to talk too much and to cry too much. Now, we thought about roads. Road from Bamenda to Mamfe, to Womb, to Vansa. But now we're talking about roads inside the town, right inside the city. That spot is shaped for those trucks, that truck standing there, which got into a gutter. There's no road construction one going there. If you look at that, that has been for the past 50, 10, 20 years. That's in the middle of town. That's Bamenda 1. Where they go and nobody lives. That's Bamenda 1. That is to put under the super mayor, who is supposed to enjoy presidential appointments. That's Bamenda 1, where the president of France threw his pride, came and stood and talked. But those are the streets of Bamenda, deteriorated for the past 50 years. That pothole that you are seeing at the gutter did not start to deteriorate today. It has been like that, and people have been falling into it. I ask yourself, what is the role of this so-called super mayor? That is in the middle of town. It is the duty of the county to at least those gutters. If they are unable to close gutters, they don't have money. But if they are unable to put simple signs warning signs there that look, danger, go slowly. What are they called a council for? These are the same people who on Wednesday will sit on the high table and celebrate May 20th and pop and what they think they can do to glorify the appointers, the people who appointed them from their own in the first line. The coroners and the generals will all be there. Can they be us? If they are running for the road, they will jump into those potholes. They will jump into those gutters and they will be hurt. They too might even die. And so we ask them, what are we celebrating? What do we have to show in Bamenda as an urban council with 3, 4, 5 council mayors all over the same thing called Bamenda? It will fall into it. Yes, we talk about Bond's company being constructing a road there. These are not roads that are planned. They are makeshift roads that were designed to satisfy a purpose. What were they designed to satisfy? The visit of the Pope, the Papa visit. So that the Pope can see this thing with the delegation of 10 or 20 and go back with the impression that where Bamenda is so good, and go back with the impression that in the cathedral people was dancing, there's peace, there's love. There is no love without enjoyment. There's love people. I love you if I can leave my own house and walk to yours. That's what it means. If you can visit me, if your children can come to my house and go back without any security risk, that's where love multiplies. But if all those traits are like that, Bamenda is a symptom. The same thing in Boya, the same thing in Mamfe, in Kumba, in Kambe, in Woman, any other town that you can talk about. And so what have we to show for all business, other than imprisonment? And not just imprisonment, self-imprisonment. Because these people are going to say mayors, like the same, nothing to show for what they sit there for. Rather than they go around and beg, and they will give them 20,000, 20 million, and then they will steal 8 of the 20 million. Back and say they are having a government. They have nothing to show. He said they are begging on the authority. What authority is that town? The authority is there, the highest authority, as far as is concerned, is the governor. Does the governor do same sort? He does. The governor of the North, what they call it, is supposed to come from Munda. My cousin is the road to Munda. How does he go to Munda every weekend to meet his family? He passes on that bad road, which is impossible. If he passes it, because he has not just a 4-wheel drive, he had an 8-wheel or 10-wheel drive. And yet he sits there with the presidential decree in shape the chair, representing anybody else. The banquets and the other have retired. These are all one group. They were sitting there in Bamenda there. They can't be human being. And so they made us to believe that secrecies to a regime that has failed was a good, better price. And when we said no, they did it is. What did they do? The court man should be for saying that the streets were hard. And Jerry. The court did what did they do? For a day that something was wrong. And here Pentony was the vice principal of a school. And so you find this multiplicity of doing created on us, and we, Ambazonians, Cameroonians, or West Cameroonians, accept those things without regret. And so we bring this harm on ourselves. By lying to yourself, place is dangerous for everybody, for the mayor himself, his own children and his wife, but who lives in that town, the same like in Boya or anywhere else. And so join a regime where telling the truth is a crime and it must be to death, or just voicing out the truth, who have failed. I have said no to this. We live in a society where you don't expect the young or the boy government to know what is happening in your backyard. It is your duty to tell them. I'm telling them that, look, there's a pothole here. It's not what the truth. If sitting down in your house to say, look, the road is too bad, I'm not going to walk because I don't provide bomb exploder. I mean, it's a crime. You'll be taxed for being an amber. And then we've got something very, very wrong. Well, there's something wrong with that society. We have to correct it. It takes a fortune to bend an iron that you harden. And so we are doing the suffering is real. There. You talk about the explosives being hit? Of course they are. Why? Because they've created a situation where anybody can do that. We don't know who put the explosives there. It could be thieves. It could just be adventurers. Created a better to do that. What does it cost to lock the potholes? That's the best. That's the worst they can even do. That's the best they can even do. The worst they can do is to put a sign to warn you and who everybody is going on foot with the torchlight, because there's no light, there are no street lights. Well, if you point your torch, see that there's inside, and the chances that break your teeth, you might even die. And so again, take it to May 20th. These ones are celebrating May 20th. Not just May 20th, National Unity, celebrating what people are dying in gutters. Ambitions are fleeing from it. What in Boya, when the streets have been swept away by the rain, Kumba, and so on and so forth. The list is long. The pains are rare, facts are rare, changeable. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Still on the road, but this time around we're heading to Mamfe, where a violent head-on collision between two vehicles at a Ben village in Batabo has left one person fighting for his life following a serious road accident along the Bamenda-Mamfe Ekona highway. The crash occurred at approximately 3 p.m. on Sunday, May 17th on the busy roadway linking Ambazonia, all Ambazonia regions. Well, according to information gathered by Undaunted, the victim was a front seat passenger in a vehicle traveling from Ambazonia towards the Kumba axis when the collision occurred. Witnesses said the man attempted to escape the impending impact by jumping through the vehicle's window moment before the crash. However, tragedy struck when the vehicle reportedly flipped over and landed on him during the accident. He jumped out through the window to save himself, but the car fell on him as it overturned. A surviving passenger said the witnesses reportedly escaped the crash without injuries. Bystanders quickly rushed to the scene and worked to rescue the trapped victim from beneath the wreckage as he suffered heavy bleeding. The injured passenger was immediately transported to the nearby health facility where he remains in critical condition. Authorities have confirmed that one of the vehicles described as a red car was heading towards the area they describe as southwest at the time of the crash. However, details concerning the second vehicle and the number of occupants involved remain unclear. The identity of the injured man had not yet been established as of Monday today, while the circumstances leading to the collision are still under investigation. The Bamenda-Mamfe Ekona road remains one of the busiest transport corridors according to information gathered in Ambazonia and has witnessed several serious accidents in recent years, often linked to the poor road conditions, speeding, and difficult driving terrain. Barrister, still on road, a life has been lost. What would you say about this?
Well, I would say that Ambazonians will have nowhere to escape. In the last 7 roads, talk about a good road. That road is African highway across Ekona to Nigeria. By definition, it's a good road. It's a good road. That's a good road because at least it starts. But good roads do not give themselves. A good road constructed means that vehicles will run instructions on certain laws. It means that applying those who have conditions. Who is supposed to enforce these laws to govern the quality of cars, to govern the speed limit on the roads? It's not you and me, it's government, somebody called authority. They have ignored it. No, they know they are there. Because to your road, you find so many control stops. Why this stopping? If you are running, you say you are running fast. What's the penalty for running fast? Give them 5,000 and walk away. If you caught you there without documents on your car, You have committed a crime. What's the penalty for it? Pay 10,000 and walk away. And so on a good road, we are still in trouble because there's nobody to enforce any law. They don't know whether the car had even brakes. You hear about investigations ongoing, which will never take anywhere. And the proof is, I can guarantee you 99% in this instant case, nobody is ever going to be charged to any court for violating any of the rules. Either because you have no you have no papers, or because you are overspeeding, or because your vehicle was not in good condition. Nobody will be charged. Investigations ongoing, no results ever coming. If the results come out, no consequences ever arise as a result of that accident. And so I say we have no way to escape to. Escape from bad road and go to good road. You fall into the hands of the administration, a failed administration. Leave the good road and go to the bad road, you go in pause. Nobody is asking any questions. And so we have been trapped for 63 years, counting. Is there a way out? Of course. Remember that there used to be a song, no condition is permanent. This condition, though for more than half a century, is not permanent. But God will not come and give us a solution. We have to find solutions to our own problems. And then God will bless us with the solutions we find. We have identified our problem. Our problem is the illegal occupation. Our problem is the deliberate underdevelopment of our own territory. Our problem is the desire by the occupier to punish us in different forms, either by sending you to prison or by allowing you to die without medical care because there's no medical facility, or just nothing they can do to punish you even when you are dead. To carry your corpse to the grave becomes another penalty, another punishment that even the dead have to pay. And so until we put off these shackles from our skin, then they will start to rebuild. No condition is permanent. Even after 100 years, we will rebuild. The other important thing is that we recognize that there's something wrong, that something has gone unusually wrong, that something is being inflicted on us, deliberately or inadvertently, and we are suffering. Why? Why, we must ask. How can we produce oil in Bian and there's no road there? How can we dump bad products from Sonora and there's no tar to tar the roads? And can we remember Mr. Hujo came to Boya sometimes in the 80s and promised, I was there in that stadium, I will make a butament factory. What is a butament factory? Waste from Sonora to make what they call tar, which is not even used in Europe, at least to pave the roads. 50 years into that, there's no butament factory in Limbe. Yet, they are still refining oil and dumping it into the ocean. Why must we go through this? Is it that we lack the thing? No. Is it that they are doing it inadvertently? No. The idea to them, because they could not take the waste from Limbe to go and do it in water. It will produce that butament. Well, it will be made in Limbe anyway. It will be made in Victoria, Southern Cameroon. That might help them even have the name. But they will not do it. They will rather let it rot in the ocean. They will rather let it perish like that and allow the very Limbe itself to sink under the water. I saw rain sweeping down the whole streets of Limbe. And so, again, no condition is permanent. All Ambazonians remain encouraged. It is good we are seeing this thing with our own eyes. Again, back to that accident, 90% chances nobody is ever going to be held accountable before any court of law. But the accident could not occur by itself. It will occur because something caused it. We're never going to find any honest answer because nobody wants to be held accountable for anything that went wrong with the people. And so let us fight our way out. We have to fight, free ourselves, and start to rebuild from where we can. And rebuild we must. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. Let's head over to our last report from the home front, where the base operation shut down Ekona market, where hundreds of people have been detained. French Cameroon soldiers from the 6th Rapid Intervention Battalion, the Bees, shut down the market in Ekona, where they have been described as the main market in Ekona on Friday, halting all economic activity and detaining hundreds of civilians in a large-scale security sweep. Well, according to witnesses, Troops condoned off the town early in the morning and rounded up market vendors, buyers, taxi drivers, travelers, women, children, and elderly residents. Those abducted were held for hours at the Presbyterian school field. They were forced to sit in the mud under the scorching sun, with many left without food or water. The operation is part of what residents describe as weeks of intensified military activity in their area. French Cameroon soldiers have been conducting unannounced searches, moving door to door through neighborhoods, breaking down doors and searching for residents who fled into nearby bushes. The sweep follows warnings issued by the French Cameroon military last Saturday, when residents say they were told to cooperate by revealing the locations of what they call the Amazonian fighters or face consequences. They said that Ekona is hiding Amber boys, that we should show where the boys are or go through the torture when they want. This is what another resident said. Ekona has been the focus of multiple bees operations since the Amazonian war escalated. The town lies along a volatile axis in the Atlantic zone of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, where clashes between government forces and Amazonian State Army have disrupted civilian life and trade for years. Local sources say the closure of the market has deepened hardship in a town where daily trading is a primary source of survival for most households. Economic activity remained paralyzed through the day as residents avoided public spaces. There has been no official statement from the French Cameroon Ministry of Defense or its authorities in the area regarding the operation as of Friday evening. Human rights groups have repeatedly raised concerns over the treatment of civilians during security operations in Amazonia, calling for adherence to international humanitarian standards and accountability for abuses. The situation in Ekona remains tense, with residents fearing further raids in the coming days. Barrister Mbeseha, to think that in the Atlantic zone where this was happening, the draft was on Saturday. On Saturday, the draft for Atlantic zone, happened while this incident was happening on Friday. But we only got the reports after the draft on Sunday. That's when we got those reports. And I'm just before we get into this, before you analyze this incident, you participated in the draft on Saturday for the Atlantic zone. How was it in general?
Well, I think in general the draft was very, very successful. You must remember that the draft, what we call a draft, are just individuals chipping in their own pennies that they can afford, voluntarily giving what you can, $10, $2, $1. If we could raise close to $20,000 in one sitting, I think that is not a lot of money, but it shows the degree of mass participation. Check out $10 make up $10,000 or $20,000. That's thousands of people involved. It shows the degree of our involvement. And it shows again, what are these drafting? 99% of the people drafting are those in the diaspora, Amazonians abroad. These are people who are keeping in $10, $1, whatever amount they can afford. And so this is mass participation. And that will send a warning sign to those in Cameroon there who think can go and deceive their brothers and sisters in Kumba, in Boya, in the town, at home, to tell them to ignore the diaspora. The diaspora is the backbone to the struggle. You will not make peace without getting to the diaspora. That's as simple as good morning. And so without mass participation, we know that the diaspora is very, very involved. That's only one of the several drafts that we've had, and that we shall continue to have. And so we say that it was a very successful draft. It shows that we are there. That's the Atlantic zone, we call it. And it includes Ekona that you have mentioned. And if you let me to transition it straight into Ekona, what happened in Ekona, we can say, and I've said here many times before, is what we call crimes against humanity. Rounding up people in the market square, rounding up people for Kale collectively, is a crime against humanity. You are abusing their human nature. You ask them to sit in mud. You ask them to kneel, to do what you want. and you extort money. You have abused their humanity. That's crime against humanity. It is punishable under the ICC. It is punishable under international law. And so what they are doing there is not new. We already have analyzed Ekona many times before. Those in Boya there, Ofako, they have met Ekona, their farm, where they go to adopt a will, carry women and young men to Boya, lock them up or threaten to lock them up, extort money from them, and in some instances rape the women at will. What have they done to merit all this? Why are they even doing this to these people? If you see that picture you shared there, you find a group of military men lined up in uniform. But they lining up in that uniform, there's color there. You find between those guys two civilians. Look at that one in a coat, with that band between his buttocks. Look at that old part there in white shirt, carrying that thing on him, condoning in what these criminals are doing to his own people. These people, if I'm right, are supposed to be mayors. Those are mayoral signs that they carry on their body. And they are there condoning what is happening to their brethren in the corner, participating in it. And so you ask, as I've said, most of these things have been brought to us because we also give submission to that. And so these are criminals in nature, call the people the military occupation forces. But these mayors, who are supposed to be people of the same area, what do we call them? They are traitors in the first order. If there's punishment, they should take it first. Because they are the ones who know Ekona. They are the ones who created, in fact, Ekona market is created by the council. They are the ones who know where people can sit and hide. They adopt them and accuse them for crimes they did not commit and force them to go look for people you don't know where they are. You don't even know their names. What other crime can we call this other than crime against humanity? This is criminal. Again, back to Ekona. This is a very Ekona. They went there a few months ago, about a year ago or so, and adopted children playing in the playground, football, just playing. The color of them took them up to Boya, locked them up, and they were extorting 20,000, 50,000, sometimes in millions. They let them go, otherwise a brand new Amber boy. And that branding is too much. Because where will you end up? You end up in Koningi, where you will die like Nango, we just saw a few days ago. And so he asked ourselves, how did our own brothers and sisters, how did our own uncles, our brothers and fathers get into all this mess? Selling their own children, selling their wives, selling their daughters, selling their own subjects to the criminal junta from Yaoundé. For what? For peanuts. For what? For money they did not deserve. This is Fako, I think. This is happening in Ekona. Ekona is in Fako. These are the people. Last week we saw them leading a delegation of chiefs to go and greet whatever thing they call the Speaker of the National Assembly. For what? Do the chief have to go and greet the Speaker of the National Assembly? We don't know. From the onwards, where they were given 3 million. 10 million for what we don't know, which they claim one of them stole it. But it turned out, according to their own story, it was not even stolen. The delegation was sent by the whole regional House of Chiefs and to bring out whatever proceeds they can get back to the house for them to share. This is the greatest criminal governance you can find in the world. A regional House of Chiefs sending a delegation to go and see the Speaker of the National Assembly to extort whatever money they can find and bring it back to them to share. I don't know how much you can say, how much more you can say about all these things. But we can only say back to Ekona. We have known Ekona for so long. Why? Because Ekona is so near Boya. Their events are reported every day. Other things are happening in different parts of Azembo and Bazonia. Be it in Dian, be it in Kambe, be it in Womb. The same things are repeating themselves. Not that they don't have the highlight that they have because they are far in the jungle. There's no way to report those things that we will report from Ekona. And so it's a tip of the iceberg. What shall we do? We have to fight. All this nonsense will end. People must be held accountable today or later. They will be held accountable for what they are doing on the people. Kale must end. Kale is not a legal process for enforcing law. You don't go catch everybody in an attempt to fish out somebody who is just a suspect. They don't even know the person's name. You don't know the person. The only thing you will do is, if he doesn't have an identity card, he's a criminal who should be prosecuted in your own court by paying a fine, by giving you ransom, whatever thing you take from him to free himself or free herself. Or it's a woman, who at age doesn't have a birth certificate or doesn't have an identity card. What's the crime? You rape her. Extort money from her husband if she's married. And so the French say in their words, excuse me, true is true. Too much is too much. We've taken enough of it. We shall stop taking it and we'll be held accountable sooner or later. Over to you.
Because they should be held accountable sooner or later. Well, I think this issue would definitely will be on the lookout to see when the people would eventually be, released, all those that have been arrested and all of that. But until then, Barrister, thank you so much for being part of tonight's Undaunted. Tomorrow is another day, and I'm sure that would have new reports from the home front and will bring you to the front burner for discussions. Thank you so much, Barrister.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And when we return from the break, we would head into Africa, where Ebola outbreak reaches Goma as WHO declares global health emergency. A fast-moving outbreak of the Bundibugyo strain of Ebola has killed more than 80 people in the Democratic Republic of Congo and spread to the major eastern city of Goma, raising fears that the true scale of infections may be far greater than officially reported. The World Health Organization has declared the outbreak an international public health service as public authorities race to contain the virus across several areas of the country. Professor Jean-Jacques Muyambe, head of National Institute of Biomedical Research, said the outbreak's epicenter is in the Mongwalu Health Zone in Ituri province, where transmission has accelerated in recent weeks. The epicenter must be the Mbuluwalu Health Zone, and yesterday there was a case in Goma, Muyambe said, confirming that the virus has now reached one of the region's most densely populated urban centers. Health officials said the latest confirmed case in Goma involved a woman who contracted the virus from her husband, who died earlier in Bunia after showing symptoms consistent with Ebola infection. Authorities have also reported the spread of infections to Bunia and Wampara, sparking concern among regional health agencies over cross-border transmission risks in eastern Congo, where population movement remains high. The Bundibugyo strain of Ebola, while generally considered less lethal than the Zaire strain, can still cause severe hemorrhage, a fever, and has historically proven difficult to contain in areas with weak healthcare infrastructure and ongoing security. Emergency response teams are now deploying additional surveillance, isolation, and contact tracing measures as international partners mobilize support to prevent a wider regional crisis. When we return right after this short break, we'll head into Equatorial Guinea, where Russia deepens defense ties during Moscow talks. Simeon Oyono Asona Angwe held talks with Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Monday as Russia signaled its willingness to expand military and strategic cooperation with the Central African nation amid ongoing competition for influence across Africa. During the meeting, Lavrov said Moscow remained committed to strengthening military technical cooperation with Equatorial Guinea, describing defense ties as part of a long-standing bilateral relationship between the two countries. According to him, says, we are always open to listening and meeting your needs in the field of defense capability as much as possible, Lavrov told Angwe during the discussions, according to remarks released by the Russian Foreign Ministry. The talks focused on defense collaboration, regional security issues, and Russia's broader engagement across Africa, where Moscow has sought to deepen political, economic, and military partnerships in recent years. Russia has explained its footprint on the continent through arms agreement, security cooperation, and diplomatic outreach, positioning itself as an alternative partner to Western powers. Several African governments have increasingly turned to Moscow for military equipment, training, and security assistance amid rising instability in parts of the Sahel and Central Africa. Equatorial Guinea, one of Africa's major oil producers, has maintained close diplomatic ties with Russia and has in recent years explored broader cooperation in energy, infrastructure, and security sectors. Analysts say the meeting underscores Moscow's continued effort to reinforce alliances in Africa despite mounting geopolitical tensions with the West over the war in Ukraine and international sanctions. Neither side disclosed details of any new defense agreement following Monday talks, but officials from both countries described the meeting as constructive and aimed at strengthening strategic relations. And that's it for news across the globe. Before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to tonight's headlines. Well, tonight on Undaunted, we told you that students has fled ahead of the May 20th lockdown and transport fares doubles while extension and extortion mounts. Tonight, we told you that residents raises alarm over deadly open gutters, unsafe roadworks in Bamenda. Still in Bamenda, but in Mamfe, we told you that one was critically injured in a head-on collision. Also tonight, we told you that the bees operation has shut down in Ekona market. Hundreds of people got detained. On the African scene, Ebola outbreak reaches Goma as WHO declares it as a global health emergency, while on the global scene, Russia and Equatorial Guinea deepens defense ties during Moscow talks. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news untold stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and a team of technicians behind tonight's production is good night and God bless. Good evening.